All right, my favorite video. We get to talk about the best movies that came out of 2023. There were a lot of them, and I gave a lot of movies 10 out of 10, and I know that I did that last year, and I said I was going to be harsher, and I was. I felt like I judged movies a lot more harshly than I did last year. If there was a single flaw or moment where I was like, well, how long is this? What act are we in? Then I took half a point off. Like, I definitely judged harder this year than I did last year. However, there were so many good movies this year. So my ranking list, I tried to put them in order of just what I felt more, since they were all relatively equal quality-wise. And so this list is based on feelings, but structurally they're all the same quality. Yeah? Okay. So first up is Godzilla Minus One. Truly might want to be one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. It's such a brilliantly executed story about grief and guilt, and it ends in hope. But after seeing it made me want to dedicate more time to foreign cinema, because if this is any measure of what Japanese film is like, then I need to watch all of it. It was emotional, and it was still a monster movie. We talked about in my worst movies video that in a monster movie, I want to see the monster. We spent plenty of time with Godzilla, and I never expected Godzilla to be a conduit for a story about survivor's guilt, but it could not have been told any better. It was truly such a good movie. I was not ready going into it, and I'm in love with this movie. I have thought about it every day since we've watched it. Please see Godzilla Minus One. It is so good. The next movie on this list is going to be The Color Purple. It's perfect as a movie. It was perfect as a musical. It was perfect as a movie musical. It was such an honest adaptation from the book and from the movie, and the performance quality was Tony Award winning across the board. It does help that Danielle Brooks herself, who was Tony nominated for the stage version, was in it. But the casting couldn't have been more perfect. I truly believe that even if you aren't a musical person, that you would and should love this movie. It transcends genre preference. It is filled with just life-changing performances. It was so incredible. Moving right on into the animated world, we have Across the Spider-Verse. Now, it's very rare for a sequel to be as good as an original film, even more rare for it to be better, but I stand by the fact that Across the Spider-Verse is better than Into the Spider-Verse was. When I found out on Twitter, of course, that there were people that didn't like this movie, I was genuinely confused, and then I remembered that stupid people exist, and it all started to make sense again. If you have more than 3 brain cells, then this was a perfect movie, and no one can convince me otherwise. Next up was one I really didn't expect to land on this list. The Iron Claw. So I just didn't expect the level of greatness that I got from this movie. I truly went in thinking this was a movie about wrestling, and damn, I was pleasantly surprised. Zac Efron proves once again that he's an incredible actor with depth and range, and I was even more impressed when I found out just how accurate of an adaptation this was to the real story. Based on true stories are always really hit or miss, but some of the actual family was involved in the movie. Some of the background wrestlers were Von Erich, I guess, grandkids if you're looking at it from the perspective of the movie. I'm sure that helped keep the filmmakers honest. I know Kevin was kind of involved in at least like approving some of the process, but the screenwriter seemed genuinely invested in telling the real story, and honestly the real story is so tragic and interesting on its own. It really didn't need any embellishment or fixing, and he did a fantastic job. Okay, so now we're moving on to one of my favorite, obviously all of these are one of my favorite movies of the year, but this one I have feelings about. Nimona. Now, when I tell you I've never been invested in a film so fast. This movie played with my emotions in so many wonderful ways. This was the most emotionally connected film of the year, and it was so incredible. This film was also based on a comic book, and I can't speak to how accurate of an adaptation it was because I haven't read it, but I can say that it felt like it was adapted from a comic book. The animation style, the fight scenes, and the way they were written all felt very comic book based, and that made it so much more fun to watch. I love this movie. It's on Netflix. Go watch it right now. Nimona, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. If you have seen it, go watch it again, because Nimona is so good. I am in love with this movie, and I can't wait to see it 10,000 more times. So the reality is that there's so many phenomenal movies this year. Hollywood has really stepped their shit up, and that said, I have to put a bonus movie on this list because I couldn't not talk about it on the video talking about the best movies of the year, and that's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was a perfect tween movie. It was the perfect movie. I will be watching this over and over and over again. I grew up watching the cartoon, and to have a story this well written for characters that a lot of us grew up with was really great. And to have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sound like teenagers is way more important than I think people realize. Patrick and I talk about this a lot. There's a lot of content for teenagers. There's a lot of content for kids. There's really nothing for like that 10 to maybe 13 age group. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is it. Like, that has always been the content for like kids all the way through tweens, and now that age group finally has a movie that feels like them, and it's so good. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was awesome. My only complaint, I think, when we left the movie was I didn't get a loud enough cowabunga, and that's it. That was my only criticism of that movie, but it had to go on the greatest movies video, so thanks.